Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Let's start our video with a story about an employee who got caught up in a new manager's rigid enforcement of company policies. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Want us to strictly follow company policies? No problem. This MC comes from a few years ago when I was working as an external developer for a software house. The team was great and the lead developer, let's call him Mark, was simply the best to work with. He was a very skilled developer with also the ability to easily coordinate the team's tasks. We also had a manager, John, who was also very friendly and easy to talk to. Our job was going smoothly. The company tracked the progress of the various projects in a software where John divided them in various steps. John set up all these steps very broadly, especially analysis, initial setup, development, release, maintenance, to avoid creating too many of them. We then needed to input the time we spent on each of these steps. If the project was missing some steps or hit the budget cap, we couldn't input our timesheets and technically weren't allowed to start working. Per company policy, our duty was to inform our direct superior about this issue, in this case, Mark. He then should have informed John, who finally would have to increase the cap. As a good manager that he was, John knew all the steps were a huge waste of Mark's and our time, so he allowed us to temporarily sign our timesheets locally and start or continue our work, gather himself all of our cap increase requests together, do all of them simultaneously, and then directly let us know we could input our timesheets in the software. Then the company got acquired by a hedge fund. Suddenly, a lot of new middle managers appeared, and John was moved to a higher position in a different department. To replace him, they hired Phil. Phil tried to present himself as the open-to-everyone's-request manager, but it became obvious pretty quickly that he was more a I'll stick to company policies as hard as I can guy, probably to appeal to his ego or to some higher up. First thing he did was completely change the project's organization to better check the project advancement. Now, in a project, every task, every little change had its own step and budget cap. Remember that if the step was not in the software, we weren't allowed to start working on it. He then enforced our daily timesheets input. It became mandatory to input them at maximum the next day so we could be more responsible about marking the project progress. It could have been okay if it wasn't for the fact that project budgets were drastically reduced. Basically, after reaching the middle of our developments, we already reached those caps and couldn't insert any more timesheets. When we started asking Phil about creating these steps or raising the budget caps like we did with John, he quickly redirected us to Mark, as that was the company policy and the proper chain of command. Mark's job quickly became hell, as he basically had to spend half day asking Phil to create project steps or raise caps. We knew we were bothering Mark, and he knew we couldn't do anything else. He tried to talk to Phil about easing these policies, but without success. At the end of the month, everyone was behind with the timesheets input, and some tasks were not started at all. Phil gathered us and other teams and started his rant about how it was our fault since we required too much time to do our job, and it was not acceptable. As our team leader, Mark was particularly targeted and probably missed some bonuses that he had no problem getting when John was the manager. His fault? Not letting Phil know soon enough that steps weren't available or budget caps were reached. It was enough for him. It was time to maliciously comply to company policies. He asked Phil to let us stay some minutes after the meeting to explain us how to resolve these issues. He agreed, but wanted to stay in the meeting too. Mark calmly said to us, "It is imperative that you tell me, and only me, that steps are missing or caps have been reached as soon as you notice. You must send me an email with this precise subject. I'll then inform Phil. Only mail requests will be accepted." He remarked various times that the mail needed to have a specific subject format, like Project X, Step Y, missing, or Project X, Step Y, cap reached. And every time he was looking at us with a look that was saying, "Just do like I say, trust me." We started doing exactly what he told us and soon discovered why he was so confident. A few days passed and an angry Phil stormed into our room yelling at Mark that his behavior was unacceptable and an urgent meeting with the higher-ups was scheduled in a few minutes. Mark went, and after about half an hour, returned with a satisfied smile on his face, and after him, a defeated Phil. He later told us that he basically set up a forwarding rule in his mailbox which forwarded it to Phil every single mail whose subjects matched the patterns above with a predefined text like, "Dear Phil, I'd like to inform you that the team brought to my attention the fact that Project X ID, missing step Y, or similar." In those few days, he submerged Phil's mailbox with our requests. Phil probably hoped that the outcome of the meeting would have went in his favor, but the higher-up stated that no company policy was violated. Mark wasn't spamming, as those were all legitimate work-related emails, and was Phil's duty to appropriately manage the situation. Also, Mark had proof that he was immediately notifying Phil about the project's issues, so nothing could be his or our fault anymore. I stopped working for the company shortly after, but after a few months, they told me that Phil was demoted and moved to another position with less responsibilities. Never, ever get on the wrong side of someone who can automate sending emails. And our second story. No lesson today. I work as a swim instructor for wealthy families. I teach lessons in people's private backyard pools. I'm contracted through a company that sets up these lessons for me, and I'm obligated to follow their policies and standards for cancellations and safety. Today, as is the case with many summer days, has been on and off thunderstorms. The majority of my lessons today have been canceled due to unsafe weather conditions. The weather policy is that if you hear thunder, you cannot enter the pool for 30 minutes. Lightning means 45 minutes. Lessons cannot be canceled until within an hour of the lesson due to weather, as things could always clear up. Today, I was sitting at home after having canceled my first 4 lessons due to weather. I was texting my next lesson, which was just under an hour away. I let the mom know that the weather radar was showing almost guaranteed large thunderstorms in her area for the entirety of the lesson time. I offered to delay the lesson by half an hour to see if the storm would pass. The mother, seeing nothing but a sunny day outside, rejected my offer and insisted we continue to have the lesson for her children. As I'm getting ready for the lesson, the mother tries to call me. I was away from my phone, but when I come back, I see I have a missed text message. She sees a dark cloud getting closer, so she asked if we can delay the lesson by 15 minutes. I again remind her of our cancellation policy and that if I make it to her house and the lesson has to be canceled, she'll still have to be charged for the full lesson. The mother insists she still wants the lesson because it's a beautiful sunny day and her children deserve to swim. I tell the mother I'll be there shortly before the lesson. As I'm driving to her house, I'm immediately hit with a horrible torrential downpour. Thunder and lightning all around me, shaking my car. I drive through this for about 15 minutes before hitting clear skies right before arriving to the house. I again text the mother that if I get out of my car and hear thunder, the lesson will have to be canceled and she'll have to be charged, as I arrived for the lesson at her request. The mother opens her front door to let me in, telling me all she's heard is faint rumbling and the sky's still sunny, so her children should swim. As I'm walking into her house, we hear a boom of thunder so loud her whole house shakes. I then see lightning strike down probably about a mile away. I told the mother I'm sorry, but these are unsafe conditions. I'll not put myself or your children at risk by getting in a pool of water during a thunderstorm. The mother proceeds to storm outside to the pool where her children are playing on the step to inform them their mean instructor won't teach them, so they'll have to get out of the pool. She then goes back inside to tell her friend who was hanging out with her that the instructor won't do it. I once again remind her of the weather policy and that it's non-negotiable. I also informed her that she'll be charged for this lesson as she insisted we have it even at my hesitation for my safety. I then left as she mocked me to her friend. I got in my car and called my supervisor to let her know what had happened. Apparently this was the final straw for this parent, as she commonly tempted to get previous swim instructors to also swim when there was unsafe weather conditions. She was blacklisted from our company and refunded the additional lesson she had paid for in advance. I'm sorry, I wasn't willing to risk my life and my job so your children could swim. That's why it takes a village to raise a child, because some parents can't handle the responsibility themselves. And our last story. Karen tried to poison me for the pool. Hello everyone, I'm writing this because I need to vent somewhere, and Reddit seems like the perfect place for it. I live alone, I'm a veteran with back and vision problems, I'm almost completely blind in one eye, and the vision in the other has also deteriorated. So I recently got a service dog, a wonderful dog, a golden retriever named Max. He's very smart and friendly, and honestly, he's become a real lifesaver for me. But not everything has been as smooth as I'd hoped. I have a terribly unpleasant neighbor named Karen. She lives next door and thinks everything around should belong to her, including my pool. Even before I got Max, she constantly tried to send her kids over the fence so they could splash around in the water when I wasn't home. I caught her a couple of times, and each time she would start yelling and spewing nonsense about how they're just kids and how I needed to be more lenient. I tolerated it, but after getting Max, the situation escalated to a new level. Turns out Karen just despised Max. She decided he was interfering with her and her children's use of the pool. Although Max was just doing his job, he was always by my side and never showed any aggression, even if someone came too close. But that didn't stop Karen. One day when I was home, I heard a noise at the fence like someone was trying to climb over it. I went outside and saw Max standing by the fence, calmly watching Karen, who was screaming at him. "You damn beast! He will maul my kids, you sick maniac!" Of course, Max didn't understand her hysteria and just stood there wagging his tail. He thought it was a game. But Karen didn't stop there. A couple of days later, I got a call from animal control. Karen had reported me, claiming I had a wild animal that was a threat to the neighborhood. An inspector came, examined Max, and confirmed that he was perfectly healthy and well-trained. Karen was furious, and her attacks only intensified. She tried to lure Max out of my yard with food. I noticed this when I saw her carefully placing a piece of meat near the fence. Max, of course, didn't pay any attention to it, but I immediately sensed something was wrong. I went outside and interrupted her actions. "Karen, what the hell are you doing?" I asked, boiling with rage. "I just wanted to treat your dog," she said with the most innocent smile, but her eyes betrayed anger and hidden hatred. "Don't feed him," I barked. "You know he's not supposed to take food from strangers." She didn't reply, just turned around and left, but I already knew this wasn't about to end. About a week later, I found several pieces of meat in different parts of my yard. At first, I thought it was just someone's bad joke, but then I noticed dead flies covering the meat. My blood ran cold. Karen had clearly decided to poison my Max. Luckily, Max was trained not to touch food he found on the ground. If he'd eaten that meat even once, I wouldn't have forgiven Karen and probably would have done something I'd later regret. I decided not to take any chances and installed 2 cameras in the front and backyards after Karen tried to lure the dog out to the street. Turned out to be the right move. The cameras caught Karen throwing something over the fence. I picked up the meat and sent it to a lab for analysis. The results shocked me. The meat contained a large amount of toxic thallium, which I was told was once used to make rat poison. I immediately called the police. They came and arrested Karen. Now she's facing trial for possessing dangerous substances and attempting to poison me and Max. I still can't believe that a person can be so cruel and reckless. This whole story's left a bitter taste in my mouth, but at least now I know that Max is safe. Thanks for listening. If something similar happens to you, don't be afraid to act. It's always better to be safe and protect yourself and your loved ones. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.